Okay, today we're going to check a little more if ratios are proportional. Okay, we'll use a table, we'll check to see if it's a proportion, and we'll do it using something called the constant of proportionality. Okay, so a little bit more practice with proportions and constants. Okay, let's review. We'll do 2 unit rate questions, and then we'll jump into proportions. Okay, so for unit rate, you're looking at your original problem. I bought 0.4 pounds of ham for $1.45. Now that order is not important. That last sentence is important. Okay, it's going to tell me what I'm looking for. How much would I pay for 1 whole pound? Okay, I'm looking for the unit rate for 1 pound, or for each pound, they may say. They may say each, or they may say per pound. Okay, but that number, I'm trying to turn it into a 1, that's going to be my denominator, per pound. Okay, now the other unit, it's how much I pay per pound. So the other unit is money. Cash is king. I'm going to put that money in the top. Okay, so it's $1.45 for 0.4 pounds. Okay, so I'm just going to divide those. 1.45 divided by 0.4. I'm getting 3.625. Dollars, right? My top unit was dollars for 1 pound. Okay, I got that number 1 in the denominator. There is an issue with this. Okay, when you're talking about money, you could only go as far as the hundredths place. Okay, now you have to know this. It's not something that will always be written, but money got around to the hundredths place. Okay, so is it going to be 362, or is that going to go up to a 363? It depends on the number next to it. Okay, number next to it is 5 or higher, so that's going to go up. So it's actually going to be $3.63 for 1 pound. Okay, and one more review question. Again, these should look similar as you're doing them, but the numbers are slightly different than last time. I read 3/10 of a book in 3 hours. Now I'm reading the important part, the last sentence. How long would it take to read the entire book? I'm trying to read one book. Or they may say each book. Or they may say per book. Okay. Per book. I'm trying to figure out the unit rate for one book. I'm going to put books in my denominator. Okay, the other unit that I'm worried about is hours. So it's how many hours for one book? Okay, well it's 3 hours for 0.3, or 3/10 of a book. So if I put that in my calculator, 3 divided by 0.3, again, just put that in from top to bottom, I'm getting 10. Okay, so it's taking me 10 hours to read one book. All right, let's jump into proportions now. Okay, so when you're doing proportions, last time there were 2 formulas that you have to memorize. Okay, the one on the left, y divided by x equals k. Okay, and they use the letter k to represent the constant of proportionality. Okay, I know constant starts with a c, but they use the letter k. And the one on the right, y equals kx. Now remember, when k and x are next to each other, it means the constant times x. So if you multiply the constant times x, it will give you the y value. Okay, you have to memorize those 2 formulas. All right, so let's look at a couple of examples with tables. So pay by the ounce frozen yogurt. We're comparing the cost to the weight. Okay, so I always make a little key, cost to the weight. And we'll look back at those formulas again. Look, the numerator was the y, and the denominator was the x. So when I make that key, the cost is going to be the y values, the weight is going to be the x values. Okay, so cost is y, weight is x. To check the proportion, underneath the table, I'm going to make another row. Y divided by x equals k. Okay, so I'm going to go through each column, and I'm going to do the y, so 4.50 divided by the x, 5. So 4.50 divided by 5. 4.50 divided by 5. Looks like I'm getting 0.9. Now, since we're talking about money, I'm going to go out one extra place value. I'm going to say 0.90. Okay, now I have to go down each column, do the y, so 6.30 divided by the x, divided by 7. 9 divided by 10. And 1080 divided by 12. You have to check every column to make sure they're the same. Okay, and I'm checking them in my calculator. I'm getting 0.90, 0.90, and 0.90. So this table does represent a proportion. So yes, it's a proportion. I would say that the constant is 0.90. Okay, so that number, the 0.90 that kept showing up over and over, that's my constant of proportionality. I'm going to use that in the equations to make two different equations. Okay, so for part B, it says, what is an equation to describe this relationship or to describe the table? Now you can use both of these formulas. Okay, but to finish the problem, okay, you're going to put in the number 0.90 that we just found wherever you see a k. Okay, so we're going to substitute 0.90 for the constant. So on the left, you can say that y divided by x, every time we did the y divided by the x, we always got 0.90. Okay, that's one possible equation. That's good. That's perfect. On the right, again, instead of the letter k, we're going to put that number that we found now. So y equals 0.90, and then I'm going to bring down the x. Now this one says if I do 0.90 times x, okay, if I multiply 0.90 in the x values, it will give me the y values. All right, cost of candy by weight. So again, in this question, we're comparing the cost to the weight. Okay, so the cost is going to be my y, the weight's going to be my x. Comparing cost to weight. The numerator is always the y, the denominator is x. Got to memorize y over x, y divided by x. Cost is y, weight is x. Let's do y divided by x and see if we get a constant number. All right, so let's check each column. Make sure you're doing it in the right order. You're going to do the y values first. So here, 2.66 divided by 2. Okay, you're going to check all four to make sure they're all the same. Okay, so 2.66 divided by 2. Checking it in my calculator, I get 133. Okay, so $1.33 so far. I'm going to do the other three and see if we get the same thing. 9.31 divided by 7 is 1.33. 11.97 divided by 9. And 13.30 divided by 10. They all work out. So this is a proportion. So yes, it's a proportion. Our constant is 1.33. Okay. We can say when we divided the y's by the x, we always got 1.33. And then two ways to describe this with an equation. Okay, we're going to use this number that we found. Okay, we did all that division. Now we have to use that number. Okay, if I use the left equation, instead of a k, now I'm going to put 1.33. That's one way. Okay, if I use the equation on the right, instead of a k, I'm going to do 1.33. Okay, so you can't just give me the original formula. You got to make it specific to the problem. So you have to use that 1.33 to get your final answers. Okay, this next one I'll just start you and then I'll see if we can finish. Okay, so I'm looking for the order to divide. You're going to do the miles divided by the gallons. Okay. Miles per gallon. The numerator is always your y, denominator is your x, y over x. So miles is y, gallons is x. Okay. Set up your last part of the table, y over x equals k. See if there is a constant, and then see if you can write your equations. Okay, part A, hopefully you divided all four, you're able to get 40. So our constant of proportionality is 40. This is a proportion when we have a constant. Okay, and then we're going to use that 40, so I'm going to erase these letter k's. Okay, so the first one I can say y divided by x equals 40. That's one possible equation. Second way I can say it, erase this k, substitute a 40. Y equals 40x. Again, I want you to practice this. Okay. So the pay proportional to the hours. Okay, so we're talking about pay in hours or dollars per hour. Pay is y, hours is x. Y over x. So dollars is y, hours is x. All right, see if you can complete this one, please. Okay, dividing, again, 12.75, 12.75, 12.75. It looks good, but when we do this last one, we get 12.1. They are not all the same. There is no constant. So this is not a proportion. This table does not represent a proportion because there is no constant. Okay, so you might get the same value when you're dividing for most of them, but if one of them is different, then it cannot be a proportion. Okay, and just another look that I want to show you before you try the very last one. If you have a table that looks like this, all right, well, two lines, you're comparing ounces to cups. All right, so ounces over cups, y over x. And you have 0 and 0. You cannot divide by 0 in math. You get an error message. Okay, so you're going to start here. You're going to do 4 divided by 1/2. Now it's probably easier to do 0.5, right? 4 divided by 0.5. I'm getting 8. 8 divided by 1. Here, instead of doing 1.5, it's probably easier to do 1.5. 12 divided by 1.5. 16 divided by 2. Okay, so this is a proportion because it has a constant of 8. And you can say y over x equals 8, or you can say y equals 8x. Y over x equals 8, or y equals 8x. Okay, see if you can do this one, and then there's also some challenge if you have extra time. Okay, please check your answer. The weight was proportional to the height, because when we divided the weight and the height, we always got 2.5. Okay, and 2.5 is known as our constant of proportionality.